G'day, g'day, g'day. Mathematical KM here. Remember their initials, not a title. Keith Malumbi. This is the 82nd hippopotamus played this year in the Year of the Waterhorse by me in over the board 60 minutes plus 30 seconds games. This is the Tuggeranong Chess Club round robin, and I'm playing Mitch Jones, who weighs in at 1630. A good, I think, 215 above my 1416. So 215 uphill. I've got the black pieces. How does it go? Let's have a look. Okay. Standard, grabbing the middle. We Fionchetto. Oh, inaccuracy, is it? But we're going to have Fionchetto, double Fionchettoed bishops looking at each other. Let's see how that goes. We still go with the D pawn, the standard third move in setting up the hippo. He's got that Fionchettoed bishop in there. You can call it an accuracychess.com, but I want my bishop set up to be staring at your bishop. So let's see how we go. Setting up a light pawn chain, and aimed, I might add, at the king side. And in general terms, in middle games, you tend to attack. You don't move the base of a pawn chain, and the pawn storm and they attack tends to happen on the other side. So it's looking to me like white is setting up to attack on the king side. We don't castle early. And I'm already thinking that I don't want to do it right now, it's too early, but castling queenside may be on the cards. Okay, he's developing that knight. We complete our skeleton. There are the optional extras that you don't play if there are pawns here or here. But for now, the queenside A pawn push might not be on the cards because that could happen. But it's looking very much like the H6 will be a move. He castles kingside, knights into the middle. He's going rooks into the middle, which is, standard sort of opening theory. And he's put his rook there because that's signalling to me that he wants to swap the dark bishops off. I love my bishops. Don't want them to come off. How can I stop what I'm predicting? A bit of a think about it. And grabbing some of this space that's being offered isn't the worst thing either. And I'm thinking very much about pawn here to discourage that one, followed by e5. And actually after those two moves, the opening I used to play with the white pieces before I entered the Year of the Hippo was the Iron English, Simon Williams course. And that would have, with the black pieces, but it's almost that setup, with the little cup of pawns and the Fionchettoed bishop, and typically the king castled over here. So I'm almost setting up an Iron English, but with the black pieces. Kind of weird, the hippo to be going into that. But let's get that preventative, prophylactic H6 move in. It's happening. He's going to want to get those bishops off. I don't want it off. So instead of the move that we really probably don't want to have, and it looks like c5 was actually my top move. And I've played it very much so I can follow with e5 and have such a solid grip there, and those bishops not... He's played it. So I predicted his next couple of moves spot on for what that's worth. And e5 at that point in time was excellent. So looking less like a hippo and more like a black version of the Iron English, which is kind of odd. Excepting that we do have, unlike in the Iron English, we've got, as does he, both players have got the major diagonal bishops. But I think my light bishop's better than his, and the dark bishops are about equal. So moving along. Okay, why did Sauron do that? Poor old D-pawn needs help. Computer likes queen here, or knight f6 also does it, because the queen becomes the defender. I've gone for the third best, but you can see from 0.35 to 0.6 there's not a lot in it. It's called an accuracy, but it was one of the three moves that defends that pawn. One of the problems with it was my e-pawn. Sure, it would be a sacrifice, but e times d4. I was a little worried at this point by just the sheer three pieces that can attack the pawn, and right now only one defender. That defender is a pawn, so the first piece, if it was to dive in, would be a sacrifice, and there is no... d4 is bringing the pawn itself as a fourth piece on that. I can see I was right to be a little worried that at this point in time that's an area that's under a lot of stress. But he's removed a little bit of the stress by taking one of those attackers across who was rerouting his knight. I've decided, and this is a move that I've gleaned, there's a good word, gleaned, from this little setup, queen, pawn, pawn, from the black lion. The queen gives that little bit of extra support to the poor old e5 pawn. So right now it's got two defenders, and thank you for moving the knight, only two attackers, so everything back to not stressed. The stress that was there is gone. He's moved his queen to join his rooks, again playing normal opening theory ideas. Develop your pieces, rooks to the middle, connect the rooks. Go on with fianchettoing bishops. So I've protected that bishop. I like my bishops, and also if I was going to castle kingside, then it would be good to still have that bishop. Now, as it is, what I'm looking at is both of his knights are on the king side. His pawn chain's aimed at the king side. It's looking to me like king side attack. I know my pawns are a little advanced, but if I can connect my rooks by castling to the queen side, it's fairly sort of strong coverage for king safety. My kingside pawns have already started moving. If I can move them along, I can try and my attack is aimed at the king. So we'll see how that goes. But just to start with, it's a backwards knight move. It's called an inaccuracy. However, that gives me 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces protecting the e5 pawn, and for the c5 pawn 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. So the fronts of my little pawn cupola are both those pawns are protected by 4 pieces. 1, 2, 3, And for the c pawn, 2 of them are pawns. So they're very well protected. And the fact that they're that well protected is also further encouragement for me to castle to the queen side and try and throw everything at his king. That was the basic plan. Defend on the queen side and attack on the king side. And now it's almost a little bit of a mirror image, and it's looking like he has got the Iron English, except typically this bishop would be here. Other than that, that's looking a lot like the Iron English for the white pieces. It's called inaccuracy. I'm happy for it to lock up on the queen side. I'm about to castle over there. So it's called a mistake. It wanted me to castle king side, but okay, I'm not that brave. Interesting, his knight dives in. And taking, what am I going to take back with? The knight or the bishop? The knight is best, that was my choice as well. Taken back with the knight. What's he going to take my knight with? Far and away, his best move is to take it with his c-pawn, which he does. And that does give him a semi-open line aimed at my king and aimed at my queen. So yeah, I can see that. So plus 1.8. Now, talking of semi-open lines and attacking in the direction of your pawn chain, I've played f5. And for example, it's not his best move because it's not a best move. Should he take, then his d-pawn becomes very weak. And if he takes, I'd take, and then he'd have to be trying to protect that. I think that would be good for me. He tries for counterplay over here. Now, largely, particularly while I've got the e-pawn protecting the d4 square, if he takes, I'm kind of keen on taking back with a knight. But what happens? I ignore it because I've got those different ways of taking back, and I'll probably do it with the knight. I've moved the h-pawn because I'm thinking about putting a bishop here lined up on his queen, making a threat, and also it's getting these pawns moving. Now that was a blunder. C times b4. If I take the pawn for free, then the queens come off. No, but certainly not the best move from positional reasons. And it again wanted that c times, but exposing the queen and the king, and just wasn't part of the positional plan, that little tactic there that it wanted. Okay, so he's moved his queen out of that line of fire. He didn't want the queens off there either. Now I know that I could have taken there and it would have been, well actually no, making a line at my king. I didn't want to do that. But f times e4, interesting. But I was more keen on damaging the pawns in front of the king, and I've played it to there. And that's that one is one I'll take a look at on the weekend, because that goes to 2.61 to white, even though there's no material difference. And he should go b times c5. I'll have to have a look how that works out. But f times e4 was apparently the way to go. So I'll be looking at that. He's moved his queen to look to infiltrate. There's really only one move that makes sense, to my mind. The king can protect that pawn. It's going to be hard for him to get anybody else as well as the queen to be attacking it. It also gets the king out of, it's not in line with the queen on that file. He plays a great move, taking that pawn. I took back with the queen because I thought my king's off to the side. I'm a little bit happier with the king safety. I've got my pawns more advanced, and if he takes that one, my bishop ends up in a great outpost there. I'm thinking that if the queens and the rooks all came off, I'd be pretty happy. He's got doubled pawns, and I've got more of a pawn storm going on there. So I've gone there offering the exchange of queens. And you'll note that his best moves, queen to b3, queen to a4, or playing, d4 is interesting. I'd take him, I assume he'd take me, and then maybe I'd take there and he'd win a pawn. No, he wouldn't win a pawn, but he could take it, and then I'd take it. It would open the game up, that is for sure. But he's kept the queens on. And I've taken the g-pawn. To maintain his positional edge, he's got to take with the h-pawn, which he does. Now, queen to c8. Okay, getting the queen back early. But I've done this. For now, the only piece protecting that pawn is the queen, and it'll allow me to place my queen here. And, so let's get these queens off, and if you don't let the queens come off, I'll take that pawn. And if you're still only protecting it with your queen, I'll have the battery, and I'll win the pawn, and then the queens will come off. So, not liking that idea. He's threatening my queen, which I bring back. Queen to b5 may have been better at that point. Oh no, because he had a battery of his own. And if he'd taken it, I'd take back, he'd take that, I'd end up losing a bishop. So I've brought the queen back, and that was the best move. And it's quite interesting. It's calling it plus 2.5. And his next move that he should be playing is d4, smashing open the centre to ruin my plan of attacking on the king side. That actually makes sense. But what he does is bishop to c1, not an obvious mistake, but it changes it to -1 in favour of black. And knight to c5 is the move, the only move in the position to give black that edge. And for a couple of reasons. Threatens the queen and gives me two pieces on that pawn. He's going to move his queen, so I'm going to win that pawn. It's called a great move. He's moved his queen. And to a cunning place, if I just went and took the pawn with my knight, he'd win my bishop. So therefore, you take with the bishop. And the bishop's protected by the knight, and what's more, it's making a threat on that rook. And that, as they say, is the ball game. Got to actually put the ball in the basket, ball in the hoop. Now that's there for the taking, unprotected, go up by a rook. But if you're going to be up by a piece, you want as many pieces off the board as possible. And bishop just taking the piece is best. It's 4.6, but 4.1 is this bishop taking this bishop, threatening the queen, which I played. Also a great move. And just a tick him. What's the one before that? That wasn't great. Okay. So great move number one. Only best. I thought that was great as well. So it went great, best, great. For a good little patch. And at this point we've got the rook and the queen both under threat. What's he going to do? He's got to deal with this one, otherwise the queen's dead. He can't do that. Can't, otherwise he'd lose the queen to the knight, so that wouldn't be the way to do it. So in the end, the best he can really do is rook takes c1. The computer likes rook takes b6 check, which I would probably take back with the queen. I think. Oh, and then he'd take that one. He gets a pawn and opens my king up a little. But that was good, as far as good can be. And then, of course, I take that one. So now if you look at it, +6 on material, but only +5 or 4.9 on the eval. So up by 6 points, but not up by 6 there. A couple of problems with my position. It's not under threat, but the bishop's hanging. The rook's lined up with my queen. There's a few different things. And he's brought a knight in, which also gives him some protection on that pawn, which was under threat from my knight. Not that I was going to take it and let him grab my queen. So what am I going to do about that knight? Bit of a problem. I thought, let's bring the queen across. That was one of the best moves, because it was hanging. It's not hanging anymore. He plays the best move. Queen protecting, queen attacking. I thought this was a subtle move. Now, if I do something like taking that pawn, he can't take the knight. 3 pieces it could, but he can't take the knight without losing his rook, which is also check. But he sees that and shifts his rook, and what's more, makes a threat on the bishop. Let's activate that bishop. We're attacking over here anyway, so that's excellent. Just improved the piece that was under threat. He's moved his knight back. He can do that because the queen's now protecting the pawn that the knight could go at. Let's try and open a file. And I mean, I know the knight's still there, but get the queen. Maybe come across here. Rook knight. Let's get this attack going. And it's probably also worth mentioning at move 34. He has got 6 minutes on his clock, and I've got 39 minutes on mine. I've been sort of edging ahead on the clock all the way through. Just so if you're interested in that, let's go move 14. He had 42 to my 57. Let's go to move 20. He had 32 to my 50. Move 30, he had 10 to my 44, and now it's 6 to my 39. So that's being familiar with these typical middle games for the Hippo can give you an advantage on the clock. Okay, he's got a choice between taking back with the pawn or the knight. He goes with the knight. It's one of his better choices. So we've got the battery. And if nothing else happens and I get some more protection, I can move the pawn forward. It's all looking to happen. He brings his queen across. That pawn is hanging. I had to think about, I know you hate to let people infiltrate, but I'll let him come in to here if he wants, and then I can play that pawn move and go up there, because from here it's really only a threat on the D pawn, and I figure the king, that little setup's going to be pretty hard to crack, particularly with the number of pieces that he's got. So not that worried about his little attack coming in, and that was excellent. And now we go, now that was excellent, but if I don't checkmate him, I want it now 2 versus 1 if we take all the pieces off, plus I've got one more piece. Trades are good, and the queen trade would be the best trade of all. And I felt at this point that he really had no choice. He had to. It's his best move is getting the queens off. Knight f3 allows me to get the queens off, and also blocks what unfortunately, his clock on move 37 was down to 2 minutes, so he can be forgiven, but didn't see that. But the knight here blocks my queen taking his rook, or queen to d2 would have been the only way to keep the queens on. But from there, the game would go on, I'd move my pawn forward and would have that situation happening. But what did Mitch play? He went for the infiltrate. That was there earlier. God, it's even called good now. How you call it? There are no more moves because he played it and then saw queen takes rook check, and basically that's where Mitch shook my hand. So I'll hit review. It's funny, all this was positionally an edge to white, but one step wrong. That was it there. So a tight situation. He needed to play d4 and smash open the middle. All you people who want to play against the Hippo, stop watching. Don't smash open the locked up middle. I like it. Okay, we'll go back to the review. And let's look at the highlights just quickly. 82% to 75. 11 or 9 bests and 2 great. Playing at 2150 is a lot higher than the 1400 I've got. 92.1 versus 92.0. So I'm coming out of the opening on a regular basis within 0.1% and in the 90s. And then outplayed my opponent in the middle game. So that was getting some more points on the board in this round robin tournament. And I will see you guys all next time.